Call the meeting to order. This is the January 14th, 2026 meeting of the Coeur d'Alene Airport Advisory Board. You see, I've got everybody here with the exception of Ross Schotthauer is not here. And do we have the new appointee from Hayden City?
Not yet. They have not made an appointment yet.
Okay, so we're missing 2 voting members, but we got enough for quorums. That's all that counts. We'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance, which
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
if you have a cell phone, please make sure you hit the silencer on it. Calls in the middle. Item 3 calls for conflicts of interest. Anybody on the board have any to report? Item 4 changes to the agenda. I do have one. Had a heck of a time with the agenda on item A. I have intro of new COE AAB member, which we don't have tonight. An election of a new chairperson. This actually going to be chairpersons. We got to have a new chair and vice chair for 2026. Otherwise, the agenda remains the same. 5, approved minutes of previous meeting. We've got minutes for 2 meetings that we need to take care of tonight. So, I get a motion from somebody to approve these minutes.
I make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes for November the 12th, 2025.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is carried. Coming on to item 6, staff reports and updates from the airport director.
We need to do the second
Yeah, we
minute.
need to do the second one.
Oh, we need to do them individually. I'm
You
sorry.
didn't have to, but his motion included just one.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Could I get a motion on the second one?
Yes, to approve the minutes for the meeting on December the 10th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Carried by acclamation. Okay, moving on to item 6, staff reports and updates. Justin, take it away.
Absolutely. First meeting of the year. Welcome, everyone. We submitted a work order to the BOCC for our Dura engineering, our airport engineer, to start the work on the federal contract tower program. So what that means, essentially, our plan has always been, get our temporary tower up running, but running parallel with the FAA's contract tower program, working through siting studies, the cost benefit analysis, environmentals, everything. And then eventually we will, at that kind of 5 to 8 year mark, end up with a tower, hopefully funded by the FAA as far as the tower structure, but definitely the staff funded by the FAA. So the first step in that is essentially asking the FAA to be in the program, even though we have been doing that over the last 12 months. We have to send in the official form requesting to do that. So we've contracted with our Dura to guide us through that whole process. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll submit that form to the BOCC. Once they look at that, they've pretty much already done a preliminary cost benefit analysis. They know that ours will pencil to have a tower here, but that will be conducted, and then we will move on with the siting study. That's the next kind of big study that happens. So they'll go study all the locations that a tower could be, heights of the tower, where it'll be positioned, where the controllers will be positioned, and then they use that as a design element when we actually get to the architectural design of what the tower could look like. So this is the first step of multiple steps. It's definitely going to be a long process, but it's kind of exciting to officially kick that off. So I'm hoping we'll see, timeline wise, but optimistically, maybe, summer, fall, we can say we're officially in the program, but we'll see.
But the FAA funding wouldn't kick in for 5 to 8 years? Is that what I'm understanding?
There's multiple things to be funded. So like the environmentals, the siting study, all those are reimbursable style agreements. So We will likely pay for them up front and then submit for reimbursement with the FAA. The tower itself, if we had completed all those steps and we were at the point now where we have architectural design, we're like ready to write a grant to fund the tower. They don't really have funding available right now. That could change. There's a lot of push for ATC modernization. We want to get these other steps out of the way so we hit that wave perfectly in the next few years when that could be more of a thing. So if we are in the same place we are today, we have other options. We could fund it in-house. There could be a bond. I mean, there's multiple ways to fund it. I mean, if we're honestly 5 to 8 years down the road, the way the finances have been looking at the airport, it's not unreasonable to think that we could look at doing something like that ourselves at that time too. Definitely would like the FAA to do it for us. So that's what we're going to be pushing for.
Guess what about we talked about, of course, the master plan's coming up and possible changes to the site, lengthening your runways and whatnot. How would the siting of that be worked in, given the variability of plans for the next 10 years for the airport?
We would just account for the selected site in any master plan update that we do. We're looking to kick that process off next year. This year is Taxiway Alpha, the full Alpha rehab. And then next year would be essentially the master plan update. So we would, hopefully those plans actually come together. I mean, it's going to take a good 12, 14, 18 months to do a master plan update as well. So hopefully those two come together with a site. But if a site is selected, we would just amend our ALP for that new site and where that would be.
If it were to be sited where the existing or close to the existing temporary tower, would that have an impact on future expansion? Or
no, honestly, we could, with that thing completely built now and the way it is built, we built this purposely. We could move that within a couple weeks. Like we already, honestly, even a week, we could take the top cab off and set it on the mound where they used to park the trailer down at the intersection of the runways. We could move that cab, plug it in down there, and be back in business pretty quick if that was the site selected for the permanent tower. So yeah, we'd be able to relocate it very quickly. So.
Do you think it would probably be likely though that they would locate it close to where we have the existing temp tower?
They could. For our region, they like to have the sun at their back, so a north-facing tower, kind of like Geiger, for the primary runway. So there's actually a decent little piece of property right at the end of like Delta. Where's our laser here? Right at the end of Delta 5, right in here. That is actually a pretty decent little spot that is central to both runways. It faces our primary runway, has a clear path, a better view of all the alphas and down into the deltas. So I see that as being a pretty decent contender for a tower. Our tower is likely going to be anywhere from 100 to 130 feet tall in total. So your eyesight would be 90 feet to 110, 120 feet for this area. They did a preliminary study a few years ago that had one location off over here, but the terrain is actually so low, you have to build like a 160-foot tall tower to see the end of 6, which is a long way from the primary side. So if we put it anywhere on the north side or down on this side, it's likely going to be in that 100 to 130-foot mark.
What about over in here? Would that be a possibility?
The only thing is access. They have to have street side access essentially for the controllers. The controllers kind of operate independently from the airport. They don't usually go over surfaces to get to the tower. But yeah, kind of curious to see what we come up with through that process. That leads into Taxiway Alpha. I believe we're through the 60% design on the rehab for Alpha. Just kind of a target date right now. We're looking to have, that's going to be a 30-day closure for the entire thing. That's the quickest and easiest way for them to get in there, do it all at the same time, get out. So we're going to start working with all the tenants on that side, with Coeur d'Alene Aviation, Hagedon. There's going to be a 30-day period where that whole taxiway is going to be completely redone. All the connectors onto the runway are getting redone, all new lighting, signs, everything. They regrade that whole area. So it's a really good project, but we're looking at September of this year. So it should be just after fire season. so we won't have to contend with fire season, but it'll be just before temperatures start to drop for paving and paint striping and stuff like that. So that's still pretty fluid right now, but that's kind of what we're shooting for. And then, like I said, we're going to be working closely with everyone over there because we have a decent amount of tenants on that area. A lot of them do fly in frequently, but we're going to work with them to open up space on the west ramp and hangar space if we need to.
So that goes back to 25 feet wide.
Nope, staying full 50. Yep, they agreed to stay that, and we actually have a moss that is not completely approved yet, but it looks like they're going to approve it to keep our gravel shoulders too. So they're not going to do that like 6 inches of topsoil with grass right up to the edge, which is nice. So it'll stay essentially the configuration we see it today. It's a lot easier to maintain. And
So in 30 days, you're looking at basically deconstructing that entire taxiway and reconstructing it.
mm-hmm. Yeah, they're with that. The reason they're rather than try and phase that in, one, you get a lot of seams that you don't want. That's just another failure point for the taxiway. And two, especially for the grinder, to have them come in and just do long lanes, it's way more efficient. They get in and get out. They'd have that. They're, I think, expecting to have that taxiway chipped up in under a week to have the whole thing chipped. So, yeah, it's much needed. I mean, I think most of you guys have seen where we've crack sealed on the northern side of Alpha, and it's just, it's better to just paint it on with a squeegee than to try and hit each crack. So it's failed. So
Is the runway going to stay open?
there will be closures throughout that project because they will have to get into different safety areas for signage and the connectors because they are going to pave out to, they're going to redo all the connectors out to the runway edge, which will be nice. And they're going to start the reconfiguration of that Delta intersection to square up Alpha. And then the part two of that, when we do the Delta side, when this building's gone, we can square it and make like that run-up area where we're sitting right now. But essentially, they're going to do the Alpha side of that and redo that whole run-up box down there. So it'll be nice. That'll put us in pretty good shape as far. I mean, Delta's still in fantastic shape. November's in good shape. The next big pavement maintenance I see would be in a few years would be some sort of a seal coat and striping for the small runway. You know, starting to look at 2 and 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. As far as winter ops, we kind of had our first big snowstorm here. That night we got like 6 to 8 inches out here. The guys were actually out here at 2 a.m. that morning to clear it. It quit snowing about 1 o'clock, and they were out here to get it open early, which really helped us for that week. So we didn't have these events where it ends up thawing during the day, and then we have all this moisture sitting on the runway, and it just freezes right back up. So it allowed it to actually get clear and dry for the most part on the runways, which kept us open for a couple more days that they probably wouldn't have been open. All the equipment's been working really good. We do have, I just received the design for our MB5, where we replaced that ARF truck with the MB5 with snow removal equipment. That'll probably be going out to bid here shortly for that piece. So that'll be pretty nice to look at that. But we're, like I said, we're probably a year and a half to 2 years from actually having that in our hands. It takes them a good amount of time to produce that. So
Yeah, there's really just one vendor for that, isn't there?
correct. Yeah. There are a couple of vendors that do make snow removal equipment and make that multi-process equipment. MB is one of the bigger ones that do that. So. Then the last thing I have for just a general update, we have our 139 inspection with the FAA is the first week in March. So we'll be out with those guys doing an ARC drill and doing the inspection of the 139 side of the airport. So it's pretty much from Delta 5 across. If you drew a line to the north is what they're really concentrated on, but everything's in order and ready for them to be here. So don't see any issues with that, but other than that, I can answer any questions as we go into the next stuff.
We need to say about the office building. Office building.
Yeah, I need a boat for my office up there. It's half underwater. This building for years has it's basically a building within a building. You can see by the casing, it's a red iron building with wood structure inside. It leaks inside these walls inside here. It has, this roof is like, it's almost a flat roof, parapet roof on the top. So we're kind of reluctant to put a ton of money into redoing this building if we literally plan on bulldozing it in the next 12 to 18 months. So I'm actually going to move into the other office that's right next door to get out of that one. And we're going to start heavily looking at our plan to get something to the north side. If this thing has any more issues, we could end up in some temporary solution until we figure out exactly where we're landing on the north side. But definitely something we're looking at. So
You anticipate being on the north side by this time next year?
possibly, depending on development up there. We do, and we can talk about that during the development update, but we do have options where developers, large developers up there, have offered to build us our office in exchange for, we can exchange lease rate essentially. So as long as we end at fair market value at the end of a term, someone that's building up there could get a, instead of paying like 35 cents for the for the aeronautical commercial rate, you can pay 17.5 cents, whatever that is, and then we pay that back through their land lease essentially. So we don't have to come up with the capital right out of our fund balance to go build an office there, which is a pretty cool option. We're just kind of waiting on a couple of those things to flesh out to see which direction we might go up there. So.
Seeing the FAA is requiring, or has wanted this building removed for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Do they provide any funding for?
They will tear it down. They won't build a new building, but they will pay to demolish it. So with the Delta reconfiguration here, it'll likely be one combination project where this comes down and that gets paid and redone.
Yeah, so if they're redoing, that's why I was asking about the office, they're redoing Alpha next year.
With Alpha being done this year, they didn't have, we tried to get this whole thing done with that, but they don't have enough discretionary funding to fund this side as well. So we just were focusing on getting all of Alpha rehabbed at least done before, but we weren't able to bleed over on this side at all. It's just getting too expensive to do.
But do you need to have this out of the way to square up the?
For this side of it, yes.
Yeah.
So we'll square up that side of it. So you'll actually, for a short bit, you'll taxi straight onto the runway and be on the end facing Delta. If you want to go down Delta, you'll actually pull out, come down the runway, and then go down. So it'll alleviate people crossing and running straight over all the lights into the office here, which it's kind of at nighttime. It shouldn't be confusing, but it is. So you're kind of like you're spit out on this big chunk of asphalt that doesn't really have a direction there. So, but yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? Eric? Florida Airport Association?
Yeah, we're moving along. We canceled our meeting yesterday because Elizabeth was out of town. I'm gonna blame it on her. But we are working with the 180, 185 Association to get them up here this summer. We've talked to them, and so we're working on that. And then the viewing center, I don't know where Gaston is on that, but I'm sure it's moving right along perfectly.
Absolutely.
And so we get that done, and then that's about it for this month. Let's see here. We're just going into, as the association, we're going to go into more of what pilots have been experiencing and how they, might or might not have screwed up and done things, So it's kind of a experience type thing that we're trying to bring up into the meetings, along with all the other stuff that we're doing. But that would be something that is educational for pilots. And then we had a gentleman that was flying, and he got a scholarship from the Mike's or Bucks Association. That would be, I forget the name of it, but
anyway, they got a scholarship and we handed it out last meeting to him. And he was a young pilot. He talked about experiences also, so. But that's about all I have at this point. We're just trying to get more associations to do fly-ins here too. That's another thing we're concentrating on. Trying to get other groups.
That 180, 185 association coming to summer, do you have any idea when that might be?
That's the 3rd through the 6th, or the 6th through the 8th, I think, something like that.
6 to 8. Of what
Yeah, I
month?
think it's the 6th through the 8th or 9th, and they're gonna be based out of
July, August, June?
August, I'm sorry, August. And they're gonna be based out of, the Bird Space Museum over here. They're gonna use that as their base of operations, and they're gonna fly to McGee, and they're gonna fly to Kavanaugh Bay, and they're gonna fly down to Johnson Creek Airstrip and over to Montana.
I have been talking with their organizers too, just kind of warning them that they will be like in the peak fire season during that time. So there could be heavy tanker ops and just smoke in the area too so they're aware and happy to be here. So
Hopefully they'll not get things too messed up, but they're expecting, what was it, 100 airplanes or?
100 up to 200. Yeah.
The like Super Cup group, you know, they like to get a chance to come to Idaho. Because so many of them are based out of flatland states. They come out here and it's like going to Disneyland.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of what we've been working on. Colonel Buck's Flyers Foundation. That was the one that awarded this gentleman.
How big was the scholarship, Harry?
It was $1,000 scholarship. So, and that's another thing we're trying to get young people to. We have a scholarship program too, but we're trying to get the younger folks involved. But it's so cost prohibitive nowadays to fly. It's crazy.
That's kind of the whole problem with it is
Yeah.
become a rich man's sport. Of course, it was that when I started.
Yeah.
I just wanted to live broke. Okay, anything else?
And, no, that's it.
Questions for her? Moving on to item 8, business. Item A. I was gonna introduce our new board member, but we don't have one yet. It's gonna be a person coming from the city of Hayden Lakes that's gonna whitewash the election, so they'll appoint somebody new.
Hayden.
Hayden, city of Hayden.
Yeah, I think.
And then the first item, election of a new chairpersons for 2026. I sent an email to everybody, trying to make an argument for replacing me. I've been doing this for 2 years now. I think it could use a fresh perspective. I'm a little tired of it anyway. It's not a terribly difficult job. All you have to do is originate the agendas for the meeting each week. You run the meetings. You set the tone for the meetings. You know, you have an opportunity to exercise a little bit of bully pulpit here if you want to. But I feel it benefits to have somebody with a fresh perspective doing it. And curiously enough, when I was looking at the bylaws, there didn't seem to be any restriction on having a non-voting member. So,
interesting. Restrictions on what?
a non-voting member. There seems to be no restriction. to having them as a chair. Trying to broaden the field.
in the pool up for us.
Open the pool. At any rate, I can understand people, you know, when they look at this and say, God, I don't want to have to do this. But on the other hand, it's kind of fun, you know, because you get to, you know, come up here and do a little bit of public service. And I've enjoyed working with Gas. And the agendas are kind of a bugger because we've had a lot of things have changed in the last couple of years. Issues are no longer so hot, but this used to be like a session of Congress or session of the Senate nowadays. Now it's fairly sedate, but it is a good thing to give a shot. It's like I said, I would like somebody else to take it on and try it for the next year. And you only have to serve a year at a time because it comes up every year. They really don't want you to do any more than 2 years. I know that.
And you want to go out on a high note, so.
and you want to go out on a high, you want to leave them laughing, don't want to do Rob Ryder. So I'll leave it at that. I'm gonna go ahead and call for nominations for a new chairman for the Coeur d'Alene Airport Advisory Board. And you can
So
self-nominate.
I will say just before you do that, that when I was freshly appointed, obviously not a pilot, but being the chairman, it put me in a position where I was neutral unless there was a tie. And that's kind of a nice thing if you're new, because you get a first really open view to be able to learn a lot about the airport and not all the responsibility of voting all the time unless there's some kind of a tie. So,
Well, the bylaws don't state,
and
if you're voting,
I think I
member,
committed
chairman
to
or
that.
not.
Yeah, I committed to that. But I think the bigger point was just, it really did give me an opportunity to learn a lot about the airport that I didn't know.
Mhm.
And I think that was a good thing because you're responsible to come to the meeting prepared to set the agenda. You have to kind of learn. So that was a good thing. So I wouldn't discourage anybody from doing it.
You know what I mean?
And it's not that big a hassle to put together. The first 2 times or something, it's new, so it's a hassle. But then after that, it's fairly routine. You know?
One thing I would say, that I'm a little disappointed with doing this is I would ask people for agenda items and not once from any of you have I really gotten anything, very good, I think early on did, but on a regular basis, it was usually Gaston and I would sit down and talk. I would get the update as to what's going on with the airport and then, we kind of figure out what we should talk about. I don't like the idea of just filling dead space with empty words. I like it to have some meaning. And that's where somebody else from a different point of view. I think that fosters a little better discussion. I mean, you've kind of heard every idea that's come to Frank's mind in the last 2 years. I don't know about you, but I'm bored with it. So I would urge one of you to say, hey, I'd like to give it a shot. We'll go from there.
Why do you sit there? I agree with what Frank said. However, I guess I'm not trying to stay out of it. I don't think it's going to work with a non-voting member as a chairman because they are the tiebreaker and they should be a voting member. I don't know what the bylaws will say, but you're going to get yourself into it. You could potentially get yourself in a situation where you got a split vote, and if Pat or I are chairman, we can't vote. So it complicates things. And just something to think about before you do it. Now, the other part of that is we've heard what you've expressed tonight. Not once did I hear you say you would not accept it.
I'll be honest with you, if it comes down to everybody here says I won't do it, I'll say that's fine, but I'll tell you this. I get to the end of this year, my term's up. Because I will figure 3 years is enough. So I think it's a better idea to have somebody else try this on. And it's like I said, it's just a year's commitment. Come next year and have somebody else do it. But again, it's just a way of keeping the conversation fresh. I know how Gaston feels about it. Gaston, you want me to stay doing this? You're kind of wide open to anybody doing it?
Yeah, wide open.
When you say absolutely,
You're endorsed.
like absolutely you can stay or absolutely you get the hell out of it.
That's right. How many years you done it, Frank? I thought
This is 2 years.
You did too?
Yes,
Oh, okay. Boy, time flies.
you're sailing in the Caribbean out here.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm just teasing. But no, I seriously, I think the function of the group benefits from fresh perspectives. So, I had Larry serve as vice chairman. He had to cover for me a few times. Did a really excellent job. And I think everybody here is well qualified to do it. It's just a matter of, will you be willing to, once a month, take this thing on? Like I said, got to put the agenda together, go by the county. Oh, the other thing is, when they ding the bell down to the county, you got to go down there, tell Leslie and Bruce and Mark what's going on. But that's really no different than just sitting up here during the meeting. So, anyway, guys, I'm gonna leave it in your hands.
Well, I think there's certainly people, anybody's capable of doing it. I'm not sitting there trying to say that I'm trying to get out of anything, but I've proven with my attendance record that I probably shouldn't be the chairman. So, but I see capable people. These two, if we go with the fact that it should be a voting member, I really I really can't do it because I wouldn't do it. That's just, yeah, it's not that I wouldn't want to do it, but.
How many years have you been on this board?
You probably served in that role.
Yeah.
20 something.
Yeah.
I've been the longest serving member, but that doesn't mean I need to stay on the board either, but I really enjoy it and it's been great. But I'd be interested in stepping up to the chairman. No,
I don't think so.
Dale?
I don't have the time available right now.
Yeah, we're all-
Maybe in another 6 months I would. When does the change take place?
So we want somebody in tonight, I have to jail over it that quick. That's all I got. I'd have to grab Brian Steve before he ran out the door. Or was it Brian? Well, I took over from you, didn't I, Brian?
What's that?
I took over from you.
You did? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had to grab your coattail and see you got.
So Ross
Are
is
you ready
here.
for a second
No,
term?
that's true.
I can do it. I just take it all up. Trial work.
That's
That'll
fine.
Trial work.
I didn't get his number.
It's just always hard
I nominate Ross.
to commit to anything in your
Really
life.
Well,
As a show.
and I know Ross is, he's on the, was it the Post Falls Planning and Zoning.
He is.
Commission. God knows he's got enough. I wouldn't want that job. So, guys, what do you want to do?
Let's bring Steve Anderson.
I saw at the doctor's office today. I said, you can come to the airport meeting. I go, nope, nope.
I think you're it,
No, like I said, if you want me to do it, it could be done by, what is it, 2/3 vote? It'll probably be unanimous.
If you're willing to do it one more year, you promise not to do it till you after that.
I won't be around.
So I nominate. Larry, are you willing to stay as vice?
May as
Nobody
well.
else- Nobody else wants it.
Okay. So,
Could I mention something? Are you going to every other month for this meeting?
Okay, yeah, we talked about that a little bit last month. Gaston visited with Wesley on it, and Gaston and I visited on it. And we're just going to play it by ear. There will be times like this, you have to have a meeting. There will be times, and I noted last year, how many did we have with no business? We have 4, I think, meetings. Gaston and I will meet once a month and say, do we have anything we really need to have a meeting on, and I can make that call. That's the nice thing about the chairman, you kill the meetings. So we'll just play it by ear and do it that way. So that way, when we have items such as the annual rate review, we gotta have a meeting for that. People have to vote on that. That's pretty much official business. And, there will be other things that will come up from time to time. But as a general rule, we'll look at it circumstantially each month. And if it doesn't seem like, there's any need to drag everybody together here for a half hour and all along.
Just cancel.
Yeah, just cancel it and then, that way when we meet, it has more,
Right.
rather than just going through the motions, the other meeting, because it's on the calendar. And I notice, you look at the county, when they got fair boards, I don't know how often they meet. Oh, yeah, a lot of those.
That was kind of the takeaway. If there's no reason to have a meeting, you don't have to have a meeting to have a meeting. So they can absolutely be canceled.
you'll have them on the calendar.
Leave them on the calendar.
Well, yeah, we'll leave them on the calendar and then send out a cancellation. And I don't think anybody here would have a discussion with that. Just anybody public.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate you as chair for one more term, and Larry as vice chair.
I'll do it, he'll do it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? One.
Let us hear them.
Moving on,
Thanks for doing
I should charge you all.
Say you let us know.
Double your feet.
When is Hayden gonna?
Screw it up.
Yeah, half workload.
I don't know. I reached out, didn't hear anything back, so I'll reach out to him again the end of this week and see where they're at.
Do we have anything of theirs that we could sell or give away?
Yeah, we're not here to defend it. We hereby rescind our association.
We are staking our own district.
Well, let's move to B and Development Committee update. I don't know if you guys had a meeting or not.
We did.
Who would like to, you, Justin or Larry?
Guessing.
I can definitely take it.
If
Absolutely.
he forgets anything, I'll try
Yeah,
to
you
fill
can
you
chime
in.
in.
Fill in the spaces. So yeah, we actually had a really good development committee meeting. And basically just kind of went over, we hadn't met for a couple months, but went over all the new projects as we are coming into 2026 and what's on the plate for potential projects this year. So one of the biggest things that I've been looking at, I know it's been near and dear to a lot of people's hearts too, is just making sure we have enough room for growth for the right type of development, right? We definitely have a very unique airport in that we have a clear split between commercial aviation, be it FBO, cargo, maintenance, MRO, that side, and then the GA side of the airport. So making sure that we have enough development room open for that with the demand that's coming our way. One big factor to kind of speak to that is really driving a lot of new business to the airport is Washington State's new luxury tax on aircraft, I believe, valued at over $500,000. So there's a pretty substantial tax that'll be levied annually on aircraft based on their value that is causing a wave of airplanes to relocate over here. Like our phone's ringing off the hook. I know the FBO is dealing with a lot of traffic inbound wanting to relocate airplanes here. They're saying get them out of Washington as quick as possible. So, so we're going to have this wave, and that is small GA stuff all the way to large turbine. We've had quite a big following from the turbine side, want to move their jets and stuff over here, but it doesn't take many, Cirruses and newer aircraft.
It's a basement of $500,000.
I believe it's $500,000. I'd have to look into that. Even a new Husky or new Carbon could
Like I say,
could
Carbon
fall
could.
into that. So
That's without avionics.
exactly, yeah. So one of the things that I proposed to the committee would be, let's talk about pulling this property, the gun club property, back into aviation, essentially. So that was removed from aviation use a few years ago. We're talking about pulling that back in now, coming up with master plans that will connect Alpha into there with multiple points depending on the phasing. As far as the gun club goes, we have finally reached a resolution on that with the Part 13. The sale is likely not going to be the avenue where Fish and Game would buy the property from the airport, which will benefit us for aviation in the future, honestly. But they're looking to move that money now that they would have used to purchase the property to do expansion elsewhere. And I believe they're looking at Farragut possibly to do some pretty significant shotgun expansion up there, which would be really neat. That's a cool spot. They don't, they're not encumbered by new environmental stuff, other things. So the club we met with the board over there, Fish and Game and myself, and they're on board with it. They see that there's a future now. It's not just get off the property and I don't care where you land. Like, we have a solution with moving. So with that, that's not an immediate thing. I believe there's some sort of a moratorium on development up at the Farragut range because of noise that was filed years ago. That sunsets in like 8 years, I guess. The senator is going to try and work on that to see if that can change. But essentially, we would lease the gun club property. So the bottom, if you cut a line basically through here, it's about 35, 36 acres. We would lease that property to Fish and Game. By them being a government agency, it would allow them to lease it at a reduced rate from our normal non-aeronautical rate. So that qualifies them to operate essentially like a state park or a state shooting range. They would then have a MOU with the gun club to operate it for them because Fish and Game doesn't have the staff to run it. So it'll basically go unchanged. The gun club would just know that they're like, we're not going to do any improvements here because we're going to be moving. Let's make temporary things happen. So that's kind of the direction it's going. We're still working with Fish and Game on the leasing with that and everything. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes. But what that leaves us with is the ability to do a pretty substantial, 40-acre phase one that we could have, different access points in here. I believe one of them was actually through that Soper area for the southern part. We have 3 different really good options to get taxi lanes into that property to develop that. It's a pretty substantial piece. If you add up all the acreage of general aviation hangars that currently exist, I mean, the airport's about 82 years old right now. There's only 62 acres of development. We have the ability to essentially double the size of GA and have another quarter just with adding that into the mix. So it's safe to say, like, for the foreseeable future, we have plenty of room if we master plan that properly. So that's kind of going to be a task of the development committee and this committee and the public, the association that's just coming up. We're going to be working with Ardura to give us some different options as far as the air side. How could taxiways work in there, roads work in there? What's the most efficient way to get shovel-ready property in there? It would be the goal, too, to not just turn that over to a developer and let them build a bunch of hangars. Like, my goal would be to have the airport be in control of all that, and we offer actual shovel-ready lots to people that are on the list. So, go ahead.
Wasn't one of the problems with that land is that once they vacate it, it needs to be cleaned up?
No, the only reason we would clean that up is if it's residential. The land actually does not need to be cleaned. We can pave over the top of it with ramps, taxiways, and hangars because it's industrial use. The only use to go down to zero lead would be a residential use, which we couldn't have there. So
That was one of the issues with the Fish and Game is that they wouldn't buy it unless it was
Right.
clean.
Right, yeah.
So like take Lewiston, for example, they had a shooting range just like this on their property. It closed down. They didn't touch the dirt. They literally went in there, rolled it in, packed it in the road base and built a ramp on top of it where the old shooting range was. So that is the nice thing about us being able to use that property too. We would also have a little bit of property available too. This is where our heavy diesel shop is for the airport. That shop is ultimately going to be up here next to the SRE. This is another building that's pretty much falling in on itself. So inside of 5 years, that'll be up there. When that's gone, there's a decent amount of space actually through this lane and this piece of property to build hangars against the fence line and do another taxiway. You could build some really nice condo hangars in there. Like there's a bunch of room for development in there. On top of that, we're looking at, even with allegedly, and I'm going to say this because it was the same thing last year, the FAA has told us that come May of this year, the VOR is supposed to be deactivated and taken out. That's what they said last year, but we're going to plan on it not going anywhere. But with even the VOR staying there, we still have a decent chunk of land in here that doesn't have water, doesn't have sewer out there, but we have big power out there. Vista has our main loop going through there. We could develop essentially economy hangars, economy T hangars out there. We could do rows of T hangars off the deltas out there. If we did T hangars properly with common wall stuff, we could fit another 50 airplanes just in that little piece of the infield. And then as the VOR, if that does get decommissioned, we can continue to move this direction with development, because ultimately the new Charlie taxiway will parallel 6 and 2-4, connect to Bravo 3 there on this side, and then have a connector that comes over and crosses the small runway here. So there would be main taxiway access to development out there. So we have options out there as well. Between those two spaces, we have 50 years or more of GA development possibilities, especially with the mindset would be to pack as many hangars in as we can and not be putting 60 feet between hangars, essentially not burning land. So working with the fire marshal, the 12,000 square foot is kind of the hot button where you need to go to firewalls and sprinklers and everything. So even having multiple small 40 by 40s or 40 by 50s, you could do 3 of those and then have a 30-foot space, where those hangars actually could be separate hangars, but they only have like a 10-foot space between them. And then after you hit that trigger point of square footage, then you have the 30-foot and you keep going. So basically just laying out a plan that fits the most hangars and lets us use as much of the property for airplanes as we can and get as many airplanes in as we can.
How do you take into consideration what that does to the, airspace above? I mean, adding planes may add to the amount of traffic that's transiting through this airport, obviously, but not everybody uses their plane every day.
No.
You know what I mean? So the question becomes, well, what do you do to take consideration of the potential for increased traffic and airspace?
It's definitely part of the planning. I know one thing, when it comes to the FAA, their goal is to make it as self-sustaining as possible while taking care of as much aviation as possible. If there is a viable developer, be it private, commercial, whatever it is, as long as they are a competent developer or tenant, they have to be granted access to the airport to build here. I can't say, oh, we're at 300 airplanes, we're done, we can't have anyone else build hangars here. If there's property to develop a hangar, they're a willing tenant to develop a hangar, I can't stop them from being here, essentially. So that's one of the big, we take into consideration what our count would look like, where the load would be on each runway. That all factors into how our approaches work, how the tower interfaces, now like, traffic patterns, where do we direct that traffic? Where are these areas that we try to not overfly, which has impacted greatly over the last year. I mean, since we've now had the tower here for this 12-month cycle, this is really showing how well that is working. I don't get any calls from any area anymore. Just being conscious of what that looks like. And just like you said, for any given time, I mean, all of the deltas off Delta, you have all those aircraft in there at any given time inside of an hour, you only have 3 airplanes that come and go from that whole group. So yes, we could have 400 based airplanes here, but them all going at the same time. But the only thing that is constant that goes at the same time is the flight training aircraft. Like as far as our private stuff, I mean, we have regular flyers that are here every day that go for a flight, but as far as density, it doesn't necessarily mean that that extra 50 airplanes is going to be 50 more a day, essentially. So, but the FAA will always err on the side of the airport being used for aviation in that. So,
Especially more subject to grant assurances. You really don't have much choice.
yeah, absolutely. And us, go ahead.
Well, you guys ever talking GA, I thought we'd throw out something for Frank for next month. Haven't heard anything on the grass runway lately.
Mm-hmm.
Just wonder where we're at, and is that something we'd have for discussion for next meeting?
We definitely can. That was going to be part of my update, kind of where we're going with that. But we can actually talk about that now. It goes right in here. So the design for the most part is complete on that. We're actually looking at doing the rough grading on it come springtime, as soon as the snow melts. We actually have the opportunity with tenants here that do have heavy equipment that are offering the equipment time to be able to go out there and grade that in. So that could save us a significant amount of money on that runway. We do want to bring the bigger water into the infield. That's one of the big things, like the amount of irrigation that we're looking to put on that grass runway needs that bigger line. Each zone, call it, that goes in there is fed by a 2-inch water line. The whole system is a 6-inch that feeds like the main meter box. So it's big irrigation that's going out there. That could be something that we could subcontract out, or honestly, I mean, we actually have a team that's capable of doing stuff like that. We have access to excavators that we can go dig that ourselves. So we're going to see how much of it we can get finished this year. I would like to have that hydro seeded by the fall, no later than fall this year. So
Is the design already all complete on it? Yes.
I believe we're complete on it. We might be at 90% on there. We were waiting for a couple verbiage changes with the FAA, but we've actually been recommended by our planning office to just stick with the ALA, the ones they've been called down at Driggs, the one that Sun Valley, Felts Field, those are all alternate landing areas. There was some talk that the ALA can't be inside the RSA of the runway. But ours is gonna be kind of half and half in there, but.
Where's the grass strip on?
Grass strip is gonna go parallel the 2 and 2 0 right here. So essentially this connector, all the way to this connector here will be against the runway. So you'll be able to cross, at that point. And then we're also looking to do kind of a turf taxi lane that goes over to Delta. So you don't have to go all the way up and around to get to it.
So what are you looking at for length, Walmart?
2,600 to 3,000, I think is where we're at, 60 feet wide.
And the windsock does not have to move, is that correct?
The main windsock doesn't have to move. This small runway 2 sock will move in field just a slight bit. That one is literally right on the center line of the grass runway. So, but nothing else has to move out there. Outside of that, we have, with all this Washington stuff going on, like I said, we have a pretty significant push for development on the north side of the airport for pretty large development. Not necessarily all private operators, but even manufacturing. There's a lot of aerospace manufacturing that is wanting to move out of California, move out of other states, and come to Coeur d'Alene. I know of one company that we'll be able to kind of talk about further down the future here, but they're about 100% chance of making a small turboprop aircraft out of here, manufacturing that here. There's multiple other ones that are looking at coming here. Now that Electronics International has come here from Bend, there's other companies at Bend that are now looking at Coeur d'Alene to get out of Oregon.
So they're here 100% now?
Yes. Yep. Yep, they are. They're here rooted. So
Just a question about, you said earlier about, we take FAA money. That means if there's a willing and able builder that wants to build here, you have to give them the opportunity to do so. Then you brought up this topic about there's many interested suitors that would like to move their business. It's not necessarily they might build planes, service planes, whatever it is. But they don't fly planes. They're in the industry and they bring jobs. Okay, between those two, what discretion does the FAA afford the airport to be able to make choices about filling in spaces in the airport as to who gets those spaces?
That's where it comes to like the RFP process. That's kind of what I was going to talk to on the north side. It makes it a public competitive process to essentially select the best tenant when you're talking about these larger developments. When it comes to just a private tenant wanting to build their private hangar on an airport lot, there's not much discussion to have there. We don't start the bidding process essentially to pick between, well, you fly a Gulfstream, you have a citation, we're going to pick the Gulfstream guy. Like if they're willing and able and we have the ground for a private hangar and they're willing to pay for connections and everything, we afford that. But is when it comes to these larger developments, and that's kind of what we're looking at on the north side here. We have the 2 private hangars that are going in off November right here. Those are the ones that are going vertical that you see there. And then there's one sliver left in here that is for, it's essentially shown as just a high traffic commercial aviation something. It would be airline, FBO, cargo ramp, something that has a lot of in and out. You put them up front. Things like manufacturing, private storage, maintenance, things like that, you could move towards the back because they're not in and out as much. So we are currently working with an LOI on a company that is looking to bring another FBO here. A second FBO will be right off the end of November here. Now that leaves a remainder of it's approximately 60 to 85 acres of this remaining property. Knowing that there's an FBO coming here, aviation is a very small group. So just the word of that FBO looking here, now there's a million other developers that are like, well, we want the rest of that. We want the whole thing. So we can't just say we're going to pick you and not you. The proper way to do this is an RFP. So as discussed with the development committee, what I'm going to do is put together an RFP, request for proposals from these developers with Ardura. We will then advertise seeking a master developer, essentially. It's up to them. We can kind of sketch in where we would have carry through taxiways, where surface streets might access through there, kind of give the blank canvas. It would be up to them to come to us and say, this is our vision. This is how we would develop this. This is our financial backing. This, there's a whole bunch of things that they're graded off of. We would then, my idea would be that the development subcommittee would grade those. We would, there's a whole matrix that we would go through. We would take those findings to the advisory board. The advisory board would make a recommendation based on our findings. And then that would be presented to the BOCC for award of the RFP, essentially. There's too many developers that are looking for that, large piece of property in there. It's a great opportunity for the airport. It's an opportunity for us to become even more self-sustaining, be able to work on asphalt, buy equipment when it's ancient, different things. So as far as land leases, it's a great thing. As far as aerospace, I mean, the manufacturing and aerospace side, I think it's fantastic that you're now looking at businesses that, could employ people or even more if they're manufacturing. I mean, those are high paying manufacturing jobs. So that's really neat for our county and for City of Hayden as well. So,
but there's two different, I started out by saying, are those two different things? How do you evaluate, like build more hangars versus this kind of, aviation related development, right? It sounds like they are separate things. It's not like a either or. It's like if somebody has the ability and the means to build a hangar for a private aircraft, that doesn't play into this other subject that you're talking about.
And placing
you don't
them
get to choose.
right, and placing them in a place that makes sense on the airport. Like obviously the Gun Club property, those are going to be Category 2 taxiways that come in here. So small light jet stuff could be in there, but there's not going to be some guy with his G5 that goes and parks in there. We wouldn't want someone coming and taking up a 5-acre parcel in that to just put one hangar. It's not an efficient use of that property for the airport. We want to have that available for GA, not that you can't, but the lighter GA stuff, we don't necessarily want to go up and put 200 small hangars up on the north side on the commercial 139 side of the airport. There is a clear cut right at Delta 5, essentially this side to the north and then this to the north. This is the 139 commercial side of the airport. There are definitely rules involved in that. This side of it, for lack of a better term, it's not the Wild West, but it's not held to the same standard essentially as the rest of the airport. So it's a lot easier to have your private hangar on this side of the airport for a smaller aircraft than it would be on the north side. Some people aren't affected or care about that, but go ahead.
Essentially, from my own identification, but I think toward Brian's point, the master plan kind of dictates the vision of what areas of the airport we use, what sort of purpose. And then fitting into that plan, the ideas, proposals.
That was my next question, was that fits into your master plan, right?
Exactly. So this whole development up here it is almost exactly what is shown on the ALP as shown today. We literally shows a small bit of private development, those two, commercial ramp, larger frontage here. That's the new FBO area, and then private storage, manufacturing, whatever in the back, or MROs. There could be. I know there's been interest for some of the OEMs are looking at Coeur d'Alene as well to locate here. So, what I would like to see is just a personal thing with all the aerospace that could come here. We need to be able to train our workforce to work at those places. Like it's great to have all the manufacturing and stuff, but to have an aerospace school, college, some branch of that back out here at the airport, like we could produce our employees for that aerospace out there, which would be pretty awesome.
In fact, that's our Achilles heel right now.
Yeah.
Would that, NIC need the venue for that?
It could be. I mean, that's like.
As he has attempted before. I think we're in a better trajectory right now. And yeah, just really care messages.
They did have a composite program before, and it was on Dakota, nearby the airport. I used to work at Unitech Composites right across the street, and we did a program in partnership with NIC we would send them some of our scrap parts that they could use and practice doing wet layups and things on.
That's.
I led that program.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
But in the nearest AFP school, still what, Spokane Falls?
The nearest,
College.
the St. School,
Yeah,
it's actually not Spokane Falls, it's closer to Spokane Community College. It's based in Fells.
Yeah.
It operates in Fells.
I know the city of Hayden is very excited about that possibility, having aerospace job creation, manufacturing, that kind of industry here. To them, they would rather see more of that happen on the north side, or even branching out more than building 1,000 more houses next to the airport. They'd rather see a company come here and build an airplane. So
sounds like the states of Washington and Oregon are doing us a favor.
they are right now. Yeah, absolutely.
So what's the chance, you asking them to buy more property to the north? Is that out of the picture now?
Where we stand right now, I would like to. As far as what that property goes for, we're not in a position to do that. Could we be in the future? Absolutely. Through the fence is always an option for this property. And I know in a lot of discussions with the Myers, you could have a company want to come up like Boeing and build a 500,000 square foot manufacturing facility and have a taxiway that goes through our fence onto private property. And they pay the airport for access. So our fence doesn't really dictate the ability to have aviation outside of that, which is nice.
And we can ask if we've had any inquiries from majors,
Airlines,
well,
Or-
manufacturers, companies.
Big company.
we've had interest, yes. The Textrons, Boeing, Bombardier, all of them are,
More recent.
I would say inside of 12 months, yes. They're definitely poking around. They're waiting. They just like, it's kind of like the Walmart. As soon as the Walmart's built, then you get all the other chain stores that come with it. So they kind of let other people do the R&D and development, and then it comes in a wave. So I think we're in that stage right now. We're starting, with this other FBO, we'll actually have an official FBO proposal from them in the next 60 days or so on their official plan for the FBO. But we're at that range right now where the airport, we sold right out of 2 million gallons of jet fuel this year, and 160,000 gallons, 100 low lead. So that's right where these other FBOs start looking like, wow, there's enough business there to have multiple products there. And definitely something, everything has to follow the minimum standards, everything has to follow everything, but it would be a decent market addition to it. So that's something we'll definitely be coming back to the advisory board with updates on the RFP, what that would look like. We'll probably let the advisory board do a review period of the RFP before we publish it, just to get any input from you guys and questions. The only other thing we talked about was the Forest Service area. They want to do it now. They want to lease the 20 acres now to build the Forest Service. It's a matter of just making it through their budget process. I think they're still trying. There's a lot of turbulence there federally, working through their processes. So they are partnering with IDL, the Idaho Department of Lands, in the development of that facility. So that could be another RFP opportunity too in this area. It only uses half that property.
What would they develop? What was Forest Service?
A tanker base for the larger tankers. Yeah. So just a new location to where they are down here or something.
If they do a lease like that,
Mhm.
are they held to the same standard as far as if we lease it to them like next year, they've got a year and a half to start construction on it, or they get to sit on it for 5 years?
So they would likely fall under more of the 5-year benchmark lease. So they would have to have pretty significant benchmarks. Like by year 2, they have to have permitting done, which would mean that they would be actively planning from the date that lease starts. For something that size, it definitely takes time.
Oh, I know.
But yes, if they did not perform even sooner than 5 years, it would be moving into something else. Yeah, that's all I pretty much have. I can't think of anything else, Larry, that we did really good touch base on, but I mean, from an airport development standpoint, just in the growth in our community that we've seen, I mean, we're not out advertising, come to Coeur d'Alene. This is organic growth that is coming here. Just, 0.01% of those people are coming with an airplane that are moving here. I mean, driving down 95 is not the same as it was 10 years ago. It's not, and the airport's not either. The airport in the next 5 to 10 years will probably look a lot different than it does now, just with different development and taxiway additions and different things. So it's pretty exciting. It's a healthy thing for our airport. We're definitely not the airport that's trying to figure out how we're going to make budget, how much tax we're going to have to levy on the community to make it, and all these other things. We're in a really good position to be able to chart our path in that regard. So it's definitely a healthy thing. Good.
Yes, and if I might throw something out, I see Brian's concerned about development. And of course, I've been here 31 years, Tim's been on the board, I think 25.
Yeah, it was gone.
So generically, an airport, they want to take the federal money, they do a master plan, it's good for generically 20 years. 10 years, they usually do an update. We did the first one, completed the first one in this airport in 92. Because of our growth, and the FAA is well aware of what's going on out here. Because of our growth, we have averaged, I wish Corey was here, but I think he probably know. We've averaged a major update on our master plan every 6 years. That's how fast and how much emphasis there's been on this airport. And the community has always been a part of those plans. That's why when we look at the area Gaston's talking about bringing back into aviation, has been that consideration since 92, since we did the first one. There wasn't that much emphasis on it until probably 2005, when we saw that growth, and then again in 2012. But that's when Gaston talks about we're a certificated airport, but we really have two here. We have a GA airport and we have a certificated airport. It's all the same place. However, we're not going to put Gulfstreams over here in the GA. They don't mix anyway. And that's when you look at the development on an airport and what you're going to do and what you're going to put where, some of the new ideas that Gaston discussed with the FAA since I left. They're going, well, no, you really should be looking at this. So they're going into another master plan update already. And I said, what's the other ones? Is it even 5 years old? It was finishing when I retired the first time in 2020. So here we are again into another master plan. So there's been a lot of planning and a lot of proper planning and emphasis and coordination with the city of Hayden, as much as we can. And we're very fortunate. I've gone to seminars and airports all over this country for 30 years. There's a lot of airports, a lot of communities would kill to have a setup like this because one, the cooperation we have with their neighbors, and the Myers family owns all that property to the north, and they have worked with the county, with this airport, hand in hand for the past 32 years that I know. So has there been a lot of proper planning and a lot of thought been put into this airport? You bet there is. Quite a bit.
Well, I understand you're already giving preliminary planning to the next master plan. I mean, we're coming up on year.
We're that year 6 essentially.
Yeah, it's like by year 8, you said you were starting like year 6. I think.
Yep.
So.
FedEx and UPS first came to this airport wanting to see what our growth plan, what our master plan was in 1994. They've been back here, I don't know, 3 or 4 times and earned us since then just to meet with us and see what's going on. They don't have a freight ramp here yet, but they're keeping tabs on what's going on here because they understand the growth in North Idaho, let alone Coeur d'Alene.
Well, I think, to be fair, we gotta mention that pandemic. That was a seismic shift in plans everywhere. It just changed the landscape so much. I mean, I would never have anticipated what happened, especially between internet companies releasing employees to work remote. You know, and all of a sudden the population influx that hit this place was a hammer, and there's no way you can anticipate that. That was a bomb,
Right.
and,
You do the best you can do with
you
what
do
you
the
got.
best, yeah. I think at least with this development committee, by having that, we're just kind of keeping a constant weather eye to it, so we can, especially we've talked about, and we talked about this, you and I, for the last year and a half, about these companies coming over here from the west side of Oregon and the west side of Washington. Same reason companies are going out of California down to Texas, you know, it's just all the way around, it's a better environment for them. That's just a question of, you know, how do we accommodate, how do we take the best advantage in the interest of the community, you know, to have these kinds of companies come in with these living wage jobs and efficiently site them on our airport so that, you know, we can maximize what we get in here.
Absolutely.
But I mean, it's a game of chess. I don't envy you trying to play it every day. I can imagine your phone's ringing and every time you turn around, the landscape's changing a little bit more. And I'm sure this next year is going to be like some of this luxury tax. And Bob Ferguson over there urging the Washington State Legislature to tax the state to death. You're going to see more and more of it because, you know, that's the attraction of North Idaho and Coeur d'Alene, is that we are a tax haven, a cost haven for these kinds of businesses. I'm happy to see them down there. You know, I'd rather see them than the Amazon warehouse for example.
Right. Who's the development committee right now? It's you, Frank, and
No, I'm not on it.
Larry.
Myself, Phil,
I attended.
Yeah,
You were there
Pat,
last
Phil,
I don't know if that's an invitation. Yeah, that's not.
Ross is on there.
and Ross.
Yeah, Ross is.
Ross was there.
So. Okay, are we done with that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's move on to item C, and this one, I think all we want to do is just get this out to everybody. This is the red line copy of the standards. I guess is completed, and we want to,
So essentially, yeah, the point of today is just get it out to the advisory board. This hard copy, we are going to publish the red line version on our website tomorrow by 9 o'clock in the morning. So if you need an electronic copy, there'll be one on there. There'll be, that's the place general public and anyone in the
just the same one.
same exact one. Yep. Any of our users can log in there, get it. We're likely going to put a form link on there as well with our arrow symbol, similar to like filling out a hanger form, but it's essentially a comment form. So if anyone has a comment about or a question about it, they can fill that out and we can present those comments at our next meeting. I'm anticipating the February meeting being just another discussion item. So essentially gives everyone a good 30 days to look through this and review it, write down questions. You can ask me questions anytime in between, definitely. But we can regroup, see where we're at. Maybe we can at that time say that we want to have another subcommittee meeting with the red line, with the standards committee if needed. Or we'll put a final draft together and bring that in for approval. But essentially just trying to get it into your guys' hands. I mean, just a real quick, you know, kind of the spirit of the whole process and why we did this is just there's a lot of like superfluous data in here that was more words kind of taking up a page. For example, just if something was already a state law, local law, a federal law, I don't need to cite in the minimum standards the FAA reg of why you need to report your aircraft accident. It's already in the regs. We just have a simple statement that says you must follow and abide by this, this, and this, rather than having a page of that reg that's already in the FAR, right? So it's mostly just a cleanup to make it more, it's simplified.
Readable.
Where it's more readable, user friendly, cutting down the stuff that doesn't need to be in there. It was just kind of a housekeeping measure, clarifying some things. There are a couple things we're looking at in the commercial side that's more or less, honestly, I think words that were just left out accidentally when they were typing it up. But just trying to make it easier to read. And there's a couple areas in here where sections would contradict other sections. So those were just, red lines and edits in there. So this is essentially the red line that the subcommittee has come up with. This isn't me going in and changing anything else. This is what we just put into a red line with all the notes and everything. So review it, leave some comments. We'll have the links on the website where if any of the users or pilots want to comment on it, they definitely can, or just call us or come over to the next meeting.
The next meeting, what we'll be doing is after everybody's had a chance to review it, next meeting will be a discussion. And I don't know if we'll be ready at that point to vote on sending it to the BOCC.
No, I anticipate either, like I said, another subcommittee, just recommend the subcommittee meet on it short thereafter, or another revision. Let's integrate some of those comments and then take those comments, and we'll do probably one more discussion meeting, and then we would vote on it from there. So
When you put it out tomorrow, public, is there like a required 30-day public comment period or something like that?
nothing's required. It's just more of a courtesy that we're doing, just give people a chance to digest it, look at it. We don't want to do anything in a vacuum. We're not trying to sneak anything clear or anything like that. So we just want it to be out, open to everybody, and have everyone an opportunity to look at it before we start going down the road of recommendations.
So probably then next month, we will just review and then possibly have a mini meeting, and perhaps by March, we'll be ready to send it to the board.
Yeah, depending on how that goes at the next one.
Okay. All righty. You got your homework, so you can go home and make this. It's easy. Okay, moving on to item 9. Wait. Did I have somebody else wanted to?
What's that? I didn't hear what
Anybody
you
else
asked.
want to comment or add anything to?
No, we're at public comment.
Yeah, I'm
Is that what you're saying?
moving on to public comment.
Yeah.
So. Any comment from the public? Hearing none.